Alaman din.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever or whenever you may be. This is the overnight. I'm DM Foss, and tonight we've got Gizzard Gary. How's it going, Gary?
Going good. Thanks for having me.
And Gun Websites. How you doing, G Webs?
Good. I feel like this will be a show of extraordinary magnitude.
You might hear a little extra noise. It's getting cold enough where the furnace has to supplement the heat pump. So the furnace might kick on like it is right now. Shouldn't be too bad, but yes, that is from Kentucky Fried Movie. That's the part that I like, is the fistful of yen.
It is pretty good. Do you like it because it's a Bruce Lee movie or because of some other reason?
It's a good parody of the Bruce Lee, and then the twist at the end where it's Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I think it's making fun of Bruce Lee, but it's making fun of like all movies of the time when they were kind of formulaic or whatever the word is.
Yeah. Oh, you threw me off track.
That's a great movie. Is that your favorite part of the movie then?
Yeah, that's the recording I had. I only recorded that. There are funny parts in the rest of the movie, but that's the only part that I would want to watch regularly.
Yeah, I hear you. It's like a good part. Like, that's always good. The rest of it is about half and half. I like the cow shit in here. The ladies coming into the commercial.
Yeah.
It's kind of hit or miss. I mean, it's such a a bang 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 comedy that there's parts of it that kind of make you groan, and then parts of it that'll just catch you off guard and make you chuckle too. So
You're right, and it's like nonstop, like bam, 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 bam. So they can throw so much stuff at you. You're gonna like something, I suppose.
yeah, the cockfight scene's kind of funny.
For those who might not know, Kentucky Fried Movie was done by same people that did the movie Airplane and Airplane 2.
Oh, really? I kind of figured it's like that, but was it first?
I would think so, but I don't know.
It's way more raw. It's way
Yeah.
more like they can't play that on most.
Yeah, I
stuff.
was very young when that came out. I remember.
Oh, that's interesting. It came out before I was a kid. Like I don't
I'm
know
gonna
when it
look
came
it
out,
up
but
here and see.
I had to be like a baby when it came out. If I was even alive, I think I must have been alive. I guess.
77. I was in high school. Oh my god.
I remember
Yeah,
watching
Airplane
it, and it
was-
was already like an old movie by then.
Airplane was like 80, early
Yeah.
80s, wasn't it?
Well, they probably made that movie then, and were like, "Well, you can make a movie like this, but here's the stuff you got to start taking out of movies. You can never do this again." And then there was a big list, and they're like, "All right, well, we'll make a list without all that stuff."
It's very much reminiscent. Well, actually, this came after, but there's one that's called Mr. Mike's Mondo movie that was made by some of the people who were responsible for, I believe, SCT Saturday Night Live later. That's rather on the blue side.
Huh? I never heard of that one.
Yeah, Mr. Mike's Mondo movie.
So then, getting back to the, what do they call it? Enter. But anyway, what's your favorite part of the parody? Or is there?
Oh, the Fistful of Yen.
Yeah, Fistful there.
Well, there's two parts are my favorite, and they're just little, almost throwaway jokes. One where they're fighting, and I guess there's the more I think about it, there's going to be more little parts of. But Mr. Klon, his kind of at the end when they're fighting and he kicks his sign and he's like shit, and then at the very end where he wakes up and it's all a dream and he's talking to everybody like at the end of Wizard of Oz, and Mr. Klon pulls up his arm and he's still has a flamethrower on it. He kind of hides it behind his back real quick.
I'd go with using the robot instead of the snake. Putting the robot in the little control room.
Oh, toy robot. But yeah, it's. Oh, and then I'll say also when he's fighting the henchman, the big fat henchman, and he keeps jumping on him, and the guy gets back up, and then he ends up throwing a transmission on him to finish it. Let's take a quick peek, see who's out there tonight. Kingpin was out there earlier. Probably went to bed. Hillbilly might be tied up by the grandkids. Krabby Turtle, Gizzard Gary, Vulcan Rumble, checking in, telling us we're 5x5. Garage Guy, Mario Mosen, how's it going? And I think that's everybody that said so. Oh, Ron Wayne. Good evening. Don't really have too much of a topic for tonight. I remembered what the topic was because I had forgotten what I wanted to do for topic. Remembered it, figured out a poll, then quickly forgot what the topic was, forgot what the poll was going to be. So I remembered that I forgot, and then forgot that I remembered. So there wasn't a poll this week. But one thing I was going to talk about is there's in the description, there's a link for the Gilded server, the overnight Gilded server, place to kind of hang out, chit chat, share memes and pictures. you can always get a hold of me there, and then pretty much anybody else that comes on the panel, you can usually get a hold of them too if you want. And but there's a link for the Capitol switchboard so you can find your senator or your representative. If you feel they should support it, let them know. But it's a topic that I've kind of wanted to cover for a while, but it's not really gun related, but something that always really bothers me. Civil asset forfeiture is basically, if you're, say you're going to go buy a car, you want to buy a 76 Camaro, and you have a couple $1,000s on you in cash to go buy it. You get pulled over, and the officer, for whatever reason, finds your money. They can take it and say, well, I think you're going to go buy drugs with this. Even if you have receipts showing you just pulled it out of the bank, it's at the officer's discretion whether to believe you or not. And so they can seize it. This does very little from state to state. There's some states that don't allow this. And then you've got states that can do it, and then federal, and then, well, I'll get into it in just a second. But so they can seize your money, and then if they don't believe that you're going to use it for legitimate reasons, they take it. And then you have to prove in court that it was not going to be used for anything illegal, which will often cost more than the amount of money they took. So a lot of people don't fight it. And if you go to court, what the state will do is, they'll keep it even if you never get charged for a crime. And then in court, they actually put the money on trial. And I don't quite understand how that all works, but basically they sue the money to prove that it's illegal. So to me, it is a clear Fourth Amendment violation. And I didn't look up, there was a Supreme Court ruling that kind of dealt with this, that gave an opening to allow this, but not sure exactly what was in that ruling. Some states outlaw it, but if there is a task force where the feds will deputize local law enforcement, they can seize money and then give it to the feds, who will kick back a little bit of the money back to their agency. That creates problems too. The whole task force thing, because then there's also, if they're a part of the task force, one thing that can come up is, because they're somewhat federal, then like the immunity laws gets kind of really hard to deal with. But so there's a link for also the bill itself, so you can read the bill, see what it says, and an article from the Cato Institute, kind of explaining, probably a lot better than I did, what civil asset forfeiture is. So if you get a chance, take a look at it, read about it. And
I'm assuming some of it is like, if someone is a single person and then they acquire a bunch of stuff and then they pass away and they have nowhere to pass it to, if there's no function for that, then what happens? Like pirates come and take it, or it's just someone, the neighbor steals it or something. Like, I imagine there's something there for that method or something. And then
for for like Washington State, some of it stuff like that will go. The state will hold on to it, and then I forget how much I've looked up before, but the state holds on to a lot of money. But if you're entitled to something like that, because it could be like
Well, I
a
guess I'm just
refund.
thinking of, like, where it comes from, and I imagine, like, what's that called when the state needs to do like something giant and you're in the way, and they're going to be like, it's like eminent domain. No, is that what it's called? Wherever they're
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what, we need to put this highway through here, so we're just going to give you fair value and goodbye. There's things like that where the greater good or whatever gets in the way, and I imagine that became part of it. But I guess the question is, no matter, since we don't know where it came from, is there any kind of research on how often it's used in a negative or bad way, and how often it's used just to allow things to like function? Like, I was just using that example of someone who's a person who's alone and they die without some mechanism to legally allow the state to just absorb that stuff. Then we would end up with like this, these like zones that no one owns all over the
Yeah.
country, right? So if I'm wondering how often it's used, like for a normal, I don't want to say normal, but like for a non-abusive use versus somebody abusing power. Because if there's something that's good
I
and
think
somebody abuses
that's
power
a
with it,
little
you don't
bit.
necessarily want to throw the good stuff away. But I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. I don't know.
No, that's fine. I think that's a little bit different. I don't think that something like that falls under the same category exactly.
Okay. But I'm saying, was there a good use for it then? And I just don't know what it is, but then it's being abused, or is it like literally just a negative thing completely?
Well, basically what it is, so if you're selling drugs and you're not allowed to profit from crime, so we'll just use the state to cover police agencies and sheriff's departments and all that. But so the state will take it and say, this is illegal money. We're going to use it to fight more crime. That's basically it. But there's anecdotal stories of police departments taking pool tables and using the pool tables in their rec rooms. When I was in high school, I think it was the police department. It was either can't remember if it was the county or the local police, but they had seized a Camaro. It was mid 80s Camaro. They threw lights on it and it became a police car. And the dude lived, the officer.
Kansas Highway Patrol does that right now. They've got patrol vehicles that are basically brand new Corvettes and stuff like that. They'll repaint them and outfit them as patrol vehicles. You bet.
The Association of Sheriffs, I can't remember the exact title, wrote a letter saying they opposed this bill because it would limit their ability to fight. And they threw in everything: trafficking, cartels. I can't remember. The YouTube channel Lado's Law, he read the letter that was sent. And it was just kind of, they're naming every bad thing and saying, we need this money to fight that. But reading the article from the Institute for Justice and Cato, basically, they were saying that there's no real evidence that the seizures do anything to help fight crime. And I think over a 10-year period, like something like 2010 to 2020, something like that, civil asset forfeitures, there were like $68 billion seized, with a B, billion.
Well, but the positive side, crime ended. Like, that took such a financial blow to crime that there's been no more crime because of it, right? Yeah, it does seem kind of like, oh, we're doing this to solve crime, when there's always going to be another criminal. It's like saying, oh, I'm doing this to I'm putting this ladle into the water to make a dent in the water. Well, they know how it works. The water just fills back in.
Yeah, and one of the things in the letter that was written, and who's the Texas, what is he, senator, the one with the eye patch?
Oh yeah. Cunningham or C, something with a C.
I can't think of his name. The one that kind of supports red flag laws.
Dan something.
Yeah. Crenshaw, Dan Crenshaw. It
Yeah.
was the letter that Leto read was written to Crenshaw. So if he's your, I can't remember, I think he's a senator or representative, whatever. If he represents you and you don't support civil asset forfeiture, let him know. I don't know if that letter was sent to everybody or just him specifically, but Steve Leto, the letter he read was the one sent to him. When I contacted my representative and then both the senators, and I contacted, I just sent an email to the representative first, and then basically copied what I said to her, and then sent it to the senators. And I forgot that at the beginning of what I said, I referenced the representative by name. So when I copied it, I forgot to change the name. So I sent. Hopefully, I know the aides will read it. The senators aren't going to read it. So I don't know. I just felt kind of dumb, but my point is valid. I believe. I do not support it.
Yeah, I can't imagine they would even care. They must get that because they know that people are sending stuff to both like the Congress and the Senate. So they probably get stuff with the senators' names on a regular.
So I just wanted to let everybody know, and it's something to check out. It doesn't, it probably won't affect you, but it unfairly affects a lot of people, unfortunately. And it'll be from what the articles that I was reading, I forget where it is, that they'll anything over $100. This one police force will take. And then there's back east, they'll seize cars, accuse you of drunk driving, and then seize your car. And then you have to fight to get your car back, whether you were drinking or not.
When you own a van, you always have to worry about different entities out there. Pirates are going to try to steal your van. Cops are going to try to make up excuses and impound your van, So you have to just learn how to drive fast. Pop a wheelie, jump a fence, get out of there.
So there's your nice Kansas Highway Patrol vehicle there.
Yeah, there was a federal ruling against the Kansas State Patrol here 2-3 months ago. I meant to mention it when it happened, but the Kansas State Patrol would do what they refer to as the Kansas two-step, where a way to prolong an interaction, because they're only allowed to hold you for as long as it takes to deal with whatever it was. So if you're speeding, however long it takes to do the speeding ticket. But the longer they hold you, the more information they can try and pump from you. So the Kansas State Troopers would end the interaction, start walking back to their car, stop halfway, and come back to the car and consider that a new interaction rather than a continuation of the first one. And that was ruled unconstitutional. Hillbilly saying, don't put free candy on the side of your van.
You probably shouldn't.
Back in the day, they would take cars and put dare on them, like he's saying. And that always was annoying because obviously we've seen, how effective that's been on the war against drugs or whatever. So whenever you give the government, the state, I guess, a chance to call out an enemy and then start taking stuff to fight, the quote unquote, the enemy, you're just setting yourself up for them to, they could say pools are the enemy, or people that eat wheat bread are the enemy. People that, buy too much soda in a month are the enemy, and they're just going to come up with different ways to go oh, you're going to buy soda with that money? You know, they can just make up the enemy they want and start being a
Well,
bully.
part of the problem is it's kind of because they get to keep the money that they take. They're kind of profiting from what they're doing. What this bill, the
But
15,
if they shouldn't, like, if we think of like drugs or something where everybody's minding their business and then an international entity pushes their influence on everybody. So now there's a highly addictive drug that goes around, and the state has to now enforce against something that's new. And when you take from the people that added the new thing, I guess I can understand that. But how do you put that in check so that greedy, what's that guy's name?
What
Boss
if
Hogg doesn't, or Sheriff Lobo was good. Whoever, Boss Hogg ain't, just taking the Duke boy's car because he wants it, kind of thing.
one of the ways that it's in this bill is the money goes to the general fund instead of the agency, which still
Right, so that some
isn't perfect.
some
but-
officer isn't now getting a cool new car that's going to make
Yeah.
him look good to the boss, even if he doesn't get to drive the new car. There's that incentive, right, or that perceived
Yeah.
incentive, yeah. But I guess I see where, again, like, now all of a sudden you were doing 7 jobs, now you got to do 13, and the cause of the other 5 jobs, is, let's say, highly addictive narcotic drug, right, or whatever, fill in the blank new thing that's influenced. Then I guess I can understand where they go, oh, and then, all this money came in, but I'm just my devil's advocate. I'm not saying we should keep doing it that way.
But in it, you get one of the things that you hear a lot is if an agency gets a budget cut, they say, well, we're losing this much money. Even if it's like a tax cut, the government will say, well, we're losing however much the tax cut was, we're losing 100 million or $1 billion. Well, no, you're not losing $1 billion. You're not taking $1 billion from people. You're letting people keep their money. So when you're with government, whether it's state or federal, if you're budgeted a certain amount, you use that certain amount. Whether you have to create ways to use up that money, otherwise your budget gets cut back because you're not using that much money. So if you have $100 million budget, you use 70 million, you can lose 30 million because you didn't use it the previous year. So agencies will find a way to use that extra $30 million. And
so we take that. I mean, I've known about that since I was a kid, right? When you work for the government, I've worked for the government a couple of times. It's there, but it's not like there's a memorandum that goes around and said, well, there actually probably are, but those aren't made by the bureaucracy. They're made by individuals who are trying to game it. But essentially, I was just going to say that is what's the word? Like, that's a consequence of a bureaucracy, and it's when I talk about people being able to hide in the bureaucracy or whatever, or things just being the nature of a bureaucracy, it's not like they tell people to do that. It's just that if there's 10 people, 10 departments, 10 whatever agencies, and if they say the same thing to all of them, your next year's budget's going to depend on this year's budget, which makes sense, right? If you need a lot of money, you're going to get more money next year. If you don't need that much money, you're not going to get. And if they don't offer incentives or any kind of structure for economy, right, like saving money, budgeting, then what happens is you get 10 departments or 10 agencies, and if 7 of them or 8 of them or 9 of them, even usually it's like 7 or 8 of them want to do everything and just be smart, like, hey, we work for the people, we work for the citizens, like, let's try to save them money, we want to get paid, but we don't need to waste money here. But then you get one bad one and they go, well, hell, if I throw away everything in that bin, they're going to give me a whole new bin next year, and I'll be able to say I need 2 bins next year. And that's usually what it is. And then it's just, well, if they're doing it, we're doing it, and we have to do it if they're doing it. And then it becomes not a tradition, but then it becomes a function of like you're saying, it's just kind of common that if a department wants to have more money next year, there's no way they can not spend all their money this year. They're going to have to look for dumb things to buy and I don't saying that's where the $700 toilets come from, but that's one of the reasons we see such unnecessary spending in government for sure. But anyway,
Yeah.
one of the things we do is we take for granted that has to be that way, and it doesn't have to be that way. There's just a unregulated chunk right now. I don't know. There must be ways to try to say it becomes the norm. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. That's what I was trying to say. But
that's one of the
there
things
can
that
be something
gets
to
brought
check
up.
that, though. Okay, so sorry.
It gets brought up when this issue comes up about stopping civil asset forfeiture. Is, well, we need that money. That money does this. Well, you probably don't need that money, but what I will say for the $700 toilet seat, some of it's overcharging, some of it can be.
Well, you got to hide
the
money
government's
sometimes. Like, we're building this airplane, and we're not going to tell you about it, so we don't want Russia to know about it. So therefore, there's $700 worth of seats. That's a thing too.
Well, it can also be the requirements that the government has. We want this because my granddad explained it to me, that I forget how much a hammer was, and he said it needs to be this size, this weight, this shine. So there are specifics put on that product that partially drives up the cost.
And only one supplier knows that they can make it. So boom, yeah. Like now it costs you $600 because you put all these dumb parameters on it. It needs to work in a submarine and a spaceship. Well, okay, now it costs $600, but you don't need to put that hammer in every toolbox either.
And then some of that price is probably also padded that we can charge this much because
we have the Cold War, and we had a lot of spending on stuff that allowed technology to happen. So fire suppression, right? Okay, we want to stop fires because that's a good thing. Nobody has a problem with that. There's 3 companies in the what do you call it, like in that sector of the whatever, that are working on fire suppression. We want to keep them in business. They came out with their product, and it looks like it's got some potential. You ever seen those balls, like a beach ball, you throw at a fire and it kind of explodes and puts the fire out? Somebody came up with the first one of them, and it looked like a Molotov cocktail, but it worked in reverse. And then they said, well, if we buy these for $700, we'll eventually have those volleyballs we want. So I'm wondering how much of that, like, I know that happened with technology in space because we needed to get to space for all kinds of reasons. So we bought really expensive technology to let those companies, all the Silicon Valley exists because the government paid a lot of money for the initial technology so that those companies could become what we are today. How much of that is strategic, I guess.
Yeah. Hillbilly, how's it going?
Hey, buddy, how y'all doing this evening?
Doing pretty good. You get thought maybe the grandkids tied you up.
Yeah, we got a couple of them spending the night here, so we'll try to be quiet. But yeah, this is quite the topic here. Even your local county, like for here, when we get snow and stuff, certain times of the year they need more salt or gravel or whatever for a hard winter than they do a mild winter. And so if that money's not spent, then they cut back on them the next year, and then they don't have enough salt and gravel or whatever for the roads. And, it's, business people all around the world figure this out. I don't know why our, county, state, and, governments cannot figure this out. But when he's talking about stolen goods earlier, I had somebody steal the wheels and tires off of my race car. It was over, a couple $1,000s worth. And I did a police report and everything. And about 6 months later, the county had called me and come by. And they said, Bearville, Arkansas has your tires and wheels. They called us about the report to get a hold of them. So I called them down there, and they told me in 2 months there's going to be an auction if I wanted to come down and buy my tires and wheels back. That's the honest truth.
Huh. Is they serialized or something, or they could just tell because of the combination or the pictures or something? Are they serialized?
Pardon?
Oh, I was saying, are they serialized, or they could just tell because they were unique from like a paint job or pictures or like wear treadwear or something?
I had pictures of them, and they were center lines, and which not very many people would have those type of wheels with Mickey Thompson tires on it, the same size and everything.
Yeah, that's
So
messed up.
it was.
I could almost
pretty-
see him saying like, "You got to pay for shipping over here. Like, are you got to go get them or pay to get them shipped back here or something like?" Because but I can't. That's messed up to go like.
Yeah,
Because
no,
this wasn't like next door. You had to go somewhere to do the auction. Like that's messed up.
well, I mean, it's 30 minutes away, same distance as our county courthouse. So, I mean, I'm like 6 miles off the line of Arkansas. So, I mean, it was no big deal to go pick them up. But they said that they were going to auction. I couldn't believe it.
Did you go
Did they-
bid on them or did you just write them off?
No, I was so mad I didn't go.
Did they give you a reason why they wouldn't give them to you and that they were just going to auction them?
Because they were where they were seized at is during a drug deal or something like that. That's what was folding back into where you were talking about, and because it was some type of a drug raid or something on that property, all that stuff was seized and now property of the county or state, whatever.
That was one thing that
if you
that
had
came
like,
up in one of the articles. One of the ways to try and regulate this was to tie it to a conviction, where they couldn't seize your stuff without a conviction, but it was kind of loosely interpreted where any kind of conviction dealing with like a house, there's their kid sold like $40 of weed to somebody, and since the kid had committed a crime that tied the house to the crime, the city seized the house from the parents, even though they had nothing to do with. That's kind of, in a way, kind of what Hillbilly got tied up with. The tires were related to that crime scene, so they seized the tires, even though they're his tires and he had nothing to do with
Tires and
it.
wheels. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, well then let me just put it this way. So you go I don't want to make any aspersions or whatever. So let's just say that a bad person decides, I'm going to take this boat and I'm going to trade it to an illegal person for illegal stuff. Like, I don't want to say it's for drugs, but, whatever, to kill somebody. I don't know. Knock a horse in the knees, whatever would be a legal thing. So you're going to trade this boat. And then you drop a dime. You go, hey, these people are over here causing a crime. You get your thing done. Let's say, whatever. I don't know the scenario, but, you do something to some bad guy. You make an arrangement and you trade this boat. You wait for the bad guy to do their thing. And then you call the police and report the bad guy. Now the bad guy gets caught, goes to jail. And then the police bring you back your boat. Like, that would be messed up if that would allow that mechanism to happen. Now somebody could go, oh, I'm going to go steal that boat, do a bad thing, and, pay for bad stuff with it. Worst case scenario is the boat gets returned to the person. I think that might be the mechanism, that they don't want that to be a thing where people just sort of like putting a string on a nickel, and putting it into the machine, like, and pulling the string back out. Like, is it so that the police doesn't just become the like mechanism for never paying for your illegal stuff?
Well,
but that does screw victims. I'm just saying, I'm trying to figure out if there's like a reason for that.
Well, also there's also complications when you cross state lines, because, like, I'm 6 miles from Arkansas, probably 100 miles, if that, from Oklahoma and Kansas. A little bit more, 120 to Kansas or whatever. So a lot of stuff gets stolen and taken across, state lines and stuff, and I think it makes it harder for them to trace, the police department and stuff, and easier to sell. And evidently it's harder to get it back, because if our county would have had it, I think I would have got my tires and wheels back without any problem.
That makes some sense. Because, if you think about like a tri-state, 4-state, is there a 5-state there must be a 5-state area somewhere, but there's, lots of, well, like some of those states with peninsulas. Can you imagine? You live in a peninsula and you got like 3 or 4 other states within minutes of you. That's a lot of, what's the word? Collaboration between agencies to happen across state lines, which isn't, I don't think, very easy. Well, it's not as easy as even 2 departments in the same state, which I can't imagine is always easy. But anyway, yeah, that can get pretty complicated pretty quick when Oklahoma would have to worry about Kansas and Missouri and Arkansas up in that corner. And then they'd have to worry about Texas and New Mexico and Colorado and Kansas again in that corner on the panhandle, right? And then, what is it, Louisiana and Texas down on that corner. And that's just Oklahoma, right? Like, so that would be, I never thought about it like that. It'd just be a crazy amount of confusion. But that's where criminals, they've always stood next to a border to be a dick, right? Like, they stand next to a border and run across it. Almost every like old cowboy movies, somebody run into Mexico to get away from their consequences. Canadians, probably criminals, run to America to get rid of, or could run to the United States to get, run away from Canada's laws.
Vulcan Rumbles had a question. Anybody use an AR-9? They all seem to be sold out. Anybody like them? I have never tried one. I personally don't have any real interest in AR-9s.
I always assumed that was an April Fool's thing. Is that a real thing?
Anybody else had used them?
I've never used one. Don't know as I've ever seen one in real life. Seen them in videos and stuff. But
I went to Cabela's yesterday, and I took cash. If they still had that Star BM, the 40, I was going to buy it. It was gone, so they finally sold it.
it's too bad.
Weird that just as you had the money.
And all the used guns were 10% off too. There seems to be a run. People might be panic buying a little bit. I think it's beginning of the year. There's a new training requirement that goes into effect in Washington. I think that's a big part of it, because all they had left was like for long guns, it was some shotguns and bolt action rifles. Pretty much everything else was gone. Handguns, there weren't a lot left. They had a Colt Python, which a little bit out of my price range, but it was pretty. So I just bought, picked up a couple boxes of, got a box of 450 Bushmaster and 30-06, and these 2 boxes was like $80. Guns are an expensive hobby.
Yeah, they can be.
I listened to iRobot, the audiobook, which is really good. I want to go back and watch the movie. The Will Smith one. I remember not liking the movie, and after listening to the book, there's so much better stories in the book than what they did in the movie. But so I wanted to go back and then see the movie again to see if maybe I misunderstood what I was watching. But
no, it's from what I remember from doing that same thing. Like, the movie is visually awesome and it looks great, but they tried to cram so many. It's like Hitchhiker's Guide, although Hitchhiker's Guide doesn't look all that great. But they tried to cram too much stuff into one movie, and I don't know what they were trying to do. If it's trying to be like an introduction to Asimov, I don't think it works. If it's just trying to, well, it definitely doesn't appeal to people who like Asimov. So I think it's just trying to like say, hey, here's a neat idea, let's make it into a movie, as opposed to like, here's a neat idea, let's appeal to the people that appreciate it, or let's bring people into this whole idea so that maybe we can make a whole bunch of movies. I mean, if you got people into liking Asimov, I mean, think about how much movies you could make. There's tons, potential. There's tons of them. But I think they just were like, maybe it's that committee thing, because maybe it's like the movie was a victim of too many people having their fingers in it. But it looks good, but it's nothing. It has nothing to do with, except for the 3 rules, really. It has nothing to do with the book that I can remember.
Have a good night, Ron.
Take it
Ron's
easy.
heading to
Good
bed.
weekend.
I kind of about halfway through it. It's iRobot is a series of short stories, and about halfway through, I kind of started thinking to myself, contemplating, in a society where robots are that mainstream, will people become? Will it take away the? I can't think the terms that I was thinking. Not quite make people lazy, not like Wally, not fat and lazy like Wally, but take away creativity, because the robots are doing everything. And kind of about where I started thinking about that and wondering to myself the effects that robots. Yeah, I got to the part where the Society for Humanity comes up, and in the story, there's a society of people who were they're pushing back against the robots because they're kind of asking the same questions that I was thinking at that point, which I thought was kind of interesting. Oh my God. And his use of master and boy when dealing with the robots, when they first say it, it's almost a little jarring. And I thought kind of at first, well, the people will refer to the robots as boy, and the robots refer to people, humans, as master. And I thought maybe it was just kind of the times where it was written. And then the more I thought about it, I think it was purposeful to invoke kind of that slave master relationship to make you think about how we're using the robots. I don't know if anybody else familiar with that book got that from there, or am I reading too much into it?
Oh, I guess it's been so long since I've listened to it. Probably I must have read it, but when I read it, it would have been in the 90s. So if I've listened to it since then, I guess I didn't catch on that. But there is an aspect that he wrote this stuff like before cell phones. Asimov, I can remember reading a short story. Like, he made short stories for fiction. He made short stories for nonfiction. And I read a lot of the nonfiction ones too. And I'm pretty sure it was a nonfiction one where he was talking about something, and he figured there would be lasers to space, satellites with lasers, so that we would communicate individually. But he foresaw something like the cell phone concept, where you could just pick up a thing and talk to someone immediately. He just saw it happening a little bit differently, but essentially using lasers from space to make everybody on the planet connected. So he understood that potential evolution. But I think what you were kind of alluding to, I'm going to kind of sidestep here. What you were kind of alluding to before, if everybody was driving around on Segways all the time, like Segways were easy and cheap and everyone could drive around on Segways or little carts, we'd all get super fat because we wouldn't walk anymore, right? Like there's a consequence or like a result of a new evolution in tech. And although he knew that people could talk all the time, he didn't foresee like TikTok. Once we can talk all the time, does our conversation become useless, like boring and nothing, trivial, right? Like very fast and trivial. He didn't, at least I don't remember him addressing that, because although they can foresee the tech, they can't see how the tech affects society. And if they do, they come up with wild fantasy potentials. But I don't remember Asimov ever, he's pretty positive. I don't remember him dwelling on the idea that, like you're alluding to, like if we all of a sudden can communicate, we're immediately going to take that for granted, and we're immediately going to kind of devolve to like the worst way to deal with that, instead of we could all be super, super smart. We could be like the Borg, except not with a collective mind, because with the internet and the ability for everybody to add to it and ask questions to each other, we could all be like, this could be a planet full of, like, if we were what they call the Klingon, no, not Klingons, the Vulcans. We could be like a planet full of science nerds just using the internet to constantly all get smarter. And like every generation of our kids gets smarter. We just don't have that interest or that, we don't do that impulse. But, you know what I mean? Like, they couldn't foresee us being lazy or ambitious with our tech. They just saw us getting new tech.
He does kind of address it at the end, and I think the last story that kind of put it kind of in perspective, I thought, for myself, where the character, they're kind of talking about this, and one of the characters says that the people still create the ideas, the robots are the tools to achieve it. So they're not going to kill our creativity. They're just a tool to help make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. Facilitate it, right?
Yeah.
Can they go pee for us at 3:00 in the morning?
No.
Well, they could probably come up and hold a bedpan for you, though, so you wouldn't have to get up anymore.
And Vulcan Rumble was asking about the Cabela's. Does your Cabela's have a restaurant, fish tank, turtle pond? It has restaurant, has all the stuffed animals, the plane hanging from the ceiling. The restaurant is not open anymore. They did close that one, which sounds like that happened.
Where's the restaurants in them? I'm trying to picture. It's been a while since I've been in one. Upstairs.
Oh, our Cabela's is a single story. So.
Oh, really? I've never seen a single story one, ever.
Yeah, the God, what's the other company that bought Cabela's? Bass Pro. The Bass Pro in Tacoma, they have they had a bowling alley, but that closed during the cough.
Huh.
Well, I'm in Bass Pro country. I mean, it originated right here in my backyard, and I ain't never been to Cabela's or even seen a Cabela's other than online. There's just none around here.
There's not, at least the ones here, there's not a big difference between the two. And then once they one bought the other, then they kind of mixed brands a little bit too. Yeah.
Well, the Cabela's always had the mountain with taxidermy. So there's a ton of taxidermy. And then the best Cabela's, some of them have like a museum of taxidermy, essentially like you go off into another little room off to the left, usually off to the left. And you got like a room for like a museum almost. And it's usually the taxidermy of what's around that area. So it's like, so now it's worth going to different Cabela's. And then Cabela's had, most Cabela's had a room upstairs where you could get like the stuff cheap. I don't remember Bass Pro's having that. But then Bass Pros have the fish tanks. So I would think of it as Cabela's has the taxidermy and Bass Pro has the fish tanks. But there's definitely some crossover. Like there are some Cabela's that have live critters.
Yeah, our Cabela's has a big fish tank. Yeah.
Well,
I think they figured out that people like that stuff. But like Phoenix has both. Some towns or some cities have both.
Yeah, if you can ever make it to Springfield, Missouri, where the original Bass Pro is, they have. I can't think of the name of it.
That's the one with the aquarium and the museum, right? The NRA museum is there.
Yeah, but they also have the stuffed animal museum, and it's humongous. It's like,
oh, really?
I think they have every animal in the world in that thing stuffed.
But I went into the main entrance and went left over to the museum, so I didn't even go to the right to the wherever the what's it called, the aquarium is. Is it? Where's that stuffed animal, or where's the taxidermy place?
Well, that place is another building. It's called Wonders of Wildlife or something like that.
Okay.
And of course, they stuck us taxpayers with the majority of that bill. But yeah, the original Bass Pro there in Springfield, you walk in, you got the humongous aquarium, and you got the restaurants, and it's just, of course, it's grown. By far over the years. It started out on that street corner up by the stoplight where his parents had the had a Brown Derby liquor store, and he had a small section in the back of that Brown Derby liquor store they sold fishing gear and stuff out of. And I literally, was going. We'd gone there and buy stuff before he actually started the first, opened up the building, and of course, it was nothing like it is today.
There's also a shooting gallery at the Cabela's.
Yeah, Bass Pro has them too. That's one nice thing about Bass Pro is you went in to buy, like, say, a bow and arrow or something. You literally could shoot it there and everything. They had them, you could try them out and everything, make sure you liked it. And if bought it,
I don't think we have that. They just have, the targets with the light, the gun with the light.
You don't always know about it. Behind the gun counter, though, they usually stick the range, and sometimes it's not like a public range. Sometimes it's there, but they don't have rentals. But you can buy a gun and go shoot on it still.
Yeah,
I think they all put it in. I think it's part of the building plan at Bass Pro. I don't know about Cabela's.
Yeah, so if you went in there, I'm just using compound bow or whatever. For instance, if you bought one, and they would literally adjust the poundage on it for you at one point. I don't know what they do today, within the last 15 years, but they'd adjust it for you. You could go in there and you could shoot it. Put the nocks on for you for your arrows, all that stuff. It's pretty well set up.
That's a lot more than I would expect from Cabela's to do. I know there's a bow shop out somewhere kind of in the woods. Friend got his bow there, and they basically can help tailor the bow to you.
Yeah,
pick out exactly what you need. And to answer Woods, the Lacey Cabela's, they had a restaurant upstairs, but during the cough, they shut that down and never reopened it. Yeah, the shooting gallery, they don't have a change machine. So if you don't have change, you can't use the...
Now, they bought that pyramid in Memphis, Tennessee, too. That big pyramid, they turned that into Bass Pro that has high-end, rooms up at the top, glass elevator, everything. It's pretty sweet.
You been in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I haven't been to the elevator up to the top, but I like that one. It's pretty cool.
Now, one nice thing about Cabela's is they are dog friendly. You can bring your dogs in there. So.
There was another book that I listened to that I was going to mention because I thought the movie was a good adaptation of the book, but I can't remember what it was. So I also listened to We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, what Total Recall was based on.
Oh, really? Who wrote that? Was that Dick?
Yeah, which is a short story. It's pretty
I haven't
good.
listened to that. I'm going to listen to that now. I didn't know that was a thing.
What was it that I listened to?
You like listening to Philip K. Dick? You can get a bunch of his stuff on YouTube for nothing.
Yeah, that's
most of his on YouTube.
I listened to a bunch of his.
I think he had a pretty good grasp, I guess, because he had a good idea of the internet. He had a pretty good grasp of the tech. But again, it's interesting to see how back in the day when they wrote these things, they just had no idea what the world would be like when everybody's connected, and we kind of got really trivial about things.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll think of it after I go lay down on the couch, then I'll remember what it was.
Have you ever seen the 5-hour documentary about sci-fi movies?
No, I've heard you talk about it before.
I watched that again. I was working on some stuff this week, and I watched that again. It takes me 3 days to watch it because I just don't pay attention, and I shut it off when I go take the dogs out and stuff. But it's 5 hours long. It's pretty neat.
What's it saying? Sports Co. and Sumner beats them both. I haven't been to the Sports Co. There's a driver that delivers that he loves Sports Co. I just never. I don't like driving out that way. And then their online is. I haven't looked in a while, but you can't really order anything offline, and their website isn't that great. It's basically like looking at a catalog for sections rather than anything interactive. And Shields, we don't have Shields anywhere close.
There's no way. How are you calling it nicer than Bass Pro or Cabela's? It's not bigger.
Justify yourself, Gizzard.
Yeah, that's a tough one to justify there. I mean, I don't have a problem with Shields. They're just not nice.
For one thing, most of them have a Ferris wheel in the middle. That makes them way better. Just
they do have the Ferris wheel, and they got the presidents hanging around. They got that going for them. But compared to the giant fish tank, like I've never been. I mean, I've only been to a bunch of them, but I haven't been to all of them. It's not like I love Bass Pro or nothing. But I mean, I look at the fish and go, wow. Like, and then every little kid ever, like what little kid isn't going into a Bass Pro and being impressed by that giant fish tank?
If you walk into Shields, at least the two around here that I've been to, there is a pretty giant fish tank that actually encompasses an arch where you walk in and out of the store. So you're actually walking underneath. You've got the tank on both sides of you, and then it goes over the top too. So you're completely surrounded by fish, which is pretty cool effect as you're going in and out.
So they had barbecue design their stores to just rip off the existing veterans.
And I just think overall they carry more items, and at least around here they're a little bit bigger store. Now I've never been to the flagship Bass Pro in Springfield. I'm sure
that don't count. No, that thing.
Yeah,
that's
that
like
doesn't count.
That's an entire mall. Yeah, that's
the Cabela's I've been to around here are not as big as the Shields are, but the Shields they're only in major cities. They're kind of few and far between. So
I got to go to more Shields. I've been to one in Nebraska, I guess, because I think it was Travis's. But then I went to Shields in, I think it's Fargo or someplace. Like I think it was North Dakota. I went to North Dakota, so it was Fargo in North Dakota or South Dakota. Anyway, I went to some town, and in 18 when I was coming home, and I stopped by Shields in the town. It was either New Mexico and Minnesota, or not New Mexico. It was either North Dakota and Minnesota, or something like that. And I was in the Shields in North Dakota, and it was a normal Shields. And then I went over to check. What was I looking for? I forget what I was looking for, but I went to the Shields in like Minnesota, and it was like all tennis gear and shoes. And I went, I was looking for guns, of course, but I was looking for something. I went into the store, and then I'm like, where's the gun department? And they're like, oh, we don't have a gun department. That's just the other kind of Shields that we're just all.
What?
Yeah. So that's when I was like, oh, Shields is weird. And ever since then, I've been like, I don't bother going into Shields. But, okay, so we've just experienced different ones. I have been in a giant one, but it was, I would say 3/4 the size of a Bass Pro. And I've only been to like 10 Bass Pros maybe in my whole life, but like 5 in the last few years when they're all over the place. And Shields was maybe 3/4 the size.
If you ever come back to Tulsa, I believe they've got a brand new one that's either open now or getting ready to open here soon.
A new Shields? I've never been to one in Oklahoma. I'll try that. Yeah, I hope to get back there.
If Shid's uncareful, they'll be owned by Bass Pro.
No, they're a family, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't think they would. But is Bass Pro a family anymore?
Well, I mean, Johnny Morris, he's like the main one. I mean,
so one dude still owns it?
Johnny Morris. But that's the only reason they own Cabela's is because Cabela's tried to move in down here. And not only did they get the entire project and everything all shut down, it was just a few months later that Bass Pro owned Cabela's. So,
and Cabela's just a corporation, though. Like, they don't have one guy that is Cabela's or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Vanessa Kitty's out there. Good evening. Garage Guys said the Bass Pro Cabela's pretty much dying out around his area.
Well, the bad thing about it was back in the day when they were independent of each other, they competed.
Yeah.
And you'd get price deals and stuff like that. Well, now one bought out the other. They're pretty much watered down versions of what either one was before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you've lost a lot by not having that competition.
And they would do stuff like, hey, we're doing something in the parking lot, or hey, we're doing a big event, or like, come to our store for this reason. And like you say, they were competing, so they would try to outdo each other. Now they have no interest in doing anything. They just sit there.
Yep.
Well, you have to understand with Johnny Morris, Bass Pro, they're in the racing, the hunting, the fishing, the boating, everything. And like literally there's, ex-presidents, major golfers, singers, rock singers, country singers, all rubbing shoulders with him, come play on his golf courses and stay at his places. Congressman, he has a lot of pull for just an old hillbilly.
Yeah, there's only 33 Shields in the entire United States, so it's not that big a chain.
Wow, that's a lot. I thought there was like 8.
To answer Vulcan Rumble, the Cabela's does not have a fireplace, lounge chairs. And Vanessa Kitty said Cabela's is becoming all Bass Pro, but the stores are half empty.
Yeah, a lot of the times they're rebranding the old Cabela's into Bass Pros, because the one in Kansas City used to be a Cabela's, and now I see it's a Bass Pro. So
for the rocking chairs and fireplace, now you're talking my kind of language at Cracker Barrel.
I've
Never been to a
plenty of
Cracker
them that
Barrel.
had that.
Oh man,
really?
You have to visit the Cracker Barrel.
There aren't any around here.
Huh.
yeah, a lot of them around here closed down. So
Yeah, I used to always confuse Cracker Barrel and Crate and Barrel, and I know that they're completely different.
You'd be waiting a long time for your French fries at Crate and Barrel.
Yeah.
you would.
Where do I find the bedding? Cracker Barrel.
Oh, just trying to see where the closest Cracker Barrel would be.
It's definitely going to
Idaho.
be south of you.
Well, it looks like east of me there's 3 in Idaho. Boise,
yeah.
Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene's going to be the closest. It's just over the border.
Well, one good thing about that place is their food really is like home cooking. I mean, it's good stuff, and you get good portions for your money. But and they have gift shops there and stuff. It's a pretty cool place. But when we'd be traveling, working, it's always a place that you can stop and everybody can find something to eat because they have breakfast all day. You're talking chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, whatever, desserts. So it's such a well-rounded, menu that, pretty much everybody can find something there to eat. And it was good stuff for the most part.
I saw a YouTube short. The guy put his picture up in the Cracker Barrel. Snuck it in and put it on the wall. I don't know if they ever noticed. Midget with carrot cake bought a Mossberg 500 for $350.
Nice.
I can remember when they were half that.
Well, God, that's back in the 20s.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that long ago. Yeah.
Vanessa Kitty's 3.5 miles from a Cracker Barrel.
Oh
Garage
no!
Guys says he likes the breakfast platter.
Discontinued the grilled Reuben. That's terrible.
That seems weird. How do you what do you just take it off the menu, I guess? Like they still have or is that a specific ingredient that they would only have for that? What's a Reuben roll?
Sauerkraut.
They have sauerkraut though for other dishes, I bet.
Yeah. Well, I think
maybe
they kind of bring stuff on seasonal, but then also like any other company, I think, they rotate some stuff,
Oh yeah, I'm sure they look at the numbers, and if nobody's ordering it or not enough people are ordering it, right? And then if the price, what is? I haven't ate that in a million years. What's a Reuben? Is that corned beef or something?
Yeah.
Corn. I mean, you're either corned beef or pastrami.
So if it's that's right, pastrami they might not have for nothing else. Like that might be a unique item they bring in.
Swiss
and
cheese.
Then you have
that would have though. That's not
sauerkraut and basically like a Thousand Island dressing on a rye bread.
Kind of a marble rye, usually.
Yeah, and it's good.
And a lot of times it's served with Swiss cheese too, I believe.
Yeah, Swiss cheese. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it does have Swiss cheese on it.
See, but if it's corned beef and not pastrami, then they have corned beef probably because, in other words, those aren't ingredients that they would normally have in the restaurant anyway. So that makes no sense why they would quit making it.
Well, I did the research on my restaurant because it's a pretty popular sandwich, and the original one said that it had pastrami, so that's what I used. And I think I paid more money for the pastrami. Cost me almost double the money, and it did corned beef. But they're good. They're good sandwiches.
Did you have Cubans? I prefer a Cuban personally.
And what's the difference? No sauerkraut?
Yeah, Cubans don't have sauerkraut.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever ate one like that, but I would. I don't know. I like sauerkraut. You don't like sauerkraut, or you just don't like it in a sandwich, making it all gross?
Well, there's really nothing on one of those sandwiches that I actually like by itself. I don't like rye bread. I don't like, corned beef or pastrami, either one really too much. I don't like sauerkraut. Swiss cheese, okay, but in Thousand Island. But you stick all those together and throw it on a grill. I mean, it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, a Cuban is ham, roast pork, Swiss cheese, pickles, mustard, and sometimes salami.
Oh yeah,
usually with a Cuban bread.
No way.
It's kind of a similar taste, but
I don't like rotten Nazi cabbage, so I don't. I don't eat Reubens.
What about kimchi? Same thing.
Nope.
Oh, you don't like kimchi either?
Well, yeah, I'm not into spicy things.
Well, kimchi is spicier, yeah. But the fermented part, I'm with you. I used to not like pickled stuff until here and there I'd have it on a plate with something else, like get an assortment plate, and it's like, oh, what am I eating? Oh, I'm eating something pickled. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, it's good. So I still hate some pickled stuff, but I've opened up and eaten quite a bit more pickled stuff than when I was a kid.
To answer, Midget with Carrot Cake was asking about Washington, gun laws in Washington. If they're worse than California, they are close to California right now, but I will say, since we don't have the list of approved guns, what's that called? The
the list,
not registry, but
the roster.
Roster. We don't have a roster.
Neither does Canada.
Well, that's just because they banned everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, Canada had a list, but yeah. I would say Washington's worse only because it happened more recently in Washington, and it happened in Washington. Like California, it kind of happened in the 90s, and it was almost a different generation of people who did it, where now Washington is literally the people in Washington right now. So does frustration count as a characteristic? Like, that's why I think it's worse in Washington because you could potentially get a registry or something worse. Because Washington, like California, is California. Hopefully, it'll change, but it's sort of the way it is. Where Washington is in flux, and that's a little scarier. Is that the way? So I don't know. I think I'm asking.
I would still say it's not as bad, just because there's the potential of it happening, but it hasn't happened.
I got you. I definitely agree with you. It isn't as bad yet. I just think there's the potential, and that's the scary part. California's not really moving, or if they are,
and it was
it.
It was kind of an avalanche. It all happened really fast.
Well, and it happened, and nobody really got upset about it. Like there wasn't like Colorado ousted everybody in '94 when it happened in the country. Everybody got pissed. When Obama tried to push that stuff, everybody got mad. Like in Washington, y'all haven't like fumed at the mouth about it and got pissed yet.
Yeah, Mitch is talking about the off-roster stuff, or cops can sell you whatever they want to sell you for twice the price, because they're allowed to have it because they're trained, so they're safe. But they can sell you the gun that you can't buy yourself because you're not safe to have it. But if you buy it from someone who is safe to have it, then you become safe to have it.
Well, they can buy it because they're safe, and then they can also sell it to someone because ...
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was kind of happy that the Cabela's didn't have that 40 that I really wanted, but because there's other things that I'm supposed to be saving that money for, but I can be impulsive sometimes. I want to buy patches. I'm saving to buy patches, but then
you get nowhere to run too.
Yeah, but I also want to buy guns.
Bubba showed your artwork on Guns Bearing Therapy tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
what one? What are you talking
about? I don't have it. It's on the other computer. He was talking about the
Milk Dud. What was it? Milk Dud 8 or something like that, and tactical, basically
Overweight Fighters of America.
Yeah.
So he's saying, he's actually saying he wanted to get together with you, come up with a design. And so I just kind of sat down, knocked out something, and sent it to him. Kind of a fat guy in fatigues with a
like for a logo type of thing.
Yeah. Milk Dud 6. That's his call sign. Oh.
What 6? I was eating.
Milk Dud.
Oh, okay.
Like the candy.
I'm chewing on peanuts, so it's essentially like having somebody yell at me.
Let me see if I can. Maybe if I can call up the email, I'll show you. So entertain everybody while I'm doing
this. Yep, overweight fighters of America.
Well, maybe it's possible we could start getting ready for the bracket. Anybody, does he release what the bracket topic?
No, the bracket's still recharging. It's when we do the brackets, since I still haven't updated, haven't bought the newer style bracket. I still have the older style. The regen takes a lot longer, the regeneration. So it'll be a little bit before we're ready for another bracket.
So Carrot Cake is asking about reloading shotguns. Unless you're shooting like practicing to get good at it or something, or shooting like in a match or something. Like we have a really big shotgun range here in Tucson, and for a long time, 3 of us from the gun shop would go out there like on Wednesdays and shoot with people in this match. Is that what it's called? Not a match, a league or something. So it was like a bowling league, except you would shoot shotguns. So we would end up shooting a lot of shotgun shells that way, and not so much, maybe a box every Wednesday. But then we would also go out on Saturdays just to practice and, try something new, or, you buy something new and you go out to practice with it. So you end up shooting a lot. In that case, with like 3 of us going all the time, if one of us was reloading, it probably would have been a financial savings. But I think shotgun shells typically are some of the cheapest things, especially when you're talking about just sport shotgun shells when they're not fancy hunting ones. It's kind of like, range ammo versus hollow point stuff, or CCW ammo. So if you're just buying inexpensive shotgun shells, you're not like taking it so serious, you're buying fancy shotgun shells or anything, I don't think it's worth not so much the investment, but the time. I mean, you're just going to be shooting shotgun shells so fast that you'd be spending a lot of your off time reloading. I mean, unless you have nothing else to do and you want a new hobby that's going to take a lot of your time, I just don't think it's worth it. What do you guys think?
Where it really comes in handy is like 410 right now. It's very hard to even find, and it's very expensive. So if you had saved your holes, like for 410, then it's definitely worth it. But you can buy, a box of 100 white box Winchesters at Walmart for a pretty decent cheap price.
This was the Overweight Fighters of America.
Yeah, I love it.
Tried to make it not too cartoony, not too grotesque, just a little bit overweight. But
The fun part about reloading shotguns too is that you don't have to, you put it together, powder, wad, and then shot, right? Well, you can buy mixed shots sometimes, but you can make any mix you want. So if you want to try a couple of BBs and a bunch of smaller stuff, and then a little bit of powder shot, for whatever you're doing, that might be fun. Like you might do that. So if you are into that, if you're into like playing with the recipe a little bit, but unless you're shooting a lot, then it's just going through the motions, right? If you're shooting it a lot and you're like, wow, this thing's good, but I could hit that, something coming out of the other tower if I just had a little bit more spread. Maybe if I added a little, what am I thinking, like 7 or shot or something to it, it's that kind of thing. But I don't even the old guys didn't really play around with that. It was just a thing you can play around with. And I'm just trying to think of like, so if I'm trying to help you buy a reloading set, that is another reason you could reload.
I've never reloaded anything. I've got a Lee press, but that I've never used, and I've never done the shotgun reloading. But from the videos I've seen people talking about them, it seems like the shotgun reloading is easier.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's like using the fat markers or fat chalk compared to like a fine pen, like you don't have to even be coordinated. You just have to be able to hold on to it with your fist. Like it's way easier. You can't, can you even overload a shotgun? Like you wouldn't close the thing. It's like it fills everything. So there's no way to put twice the powder in because you're already filling it with powder essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to be reloading shotguns this winter. Michael Dunn was nice enough to send me a loader and a brand new one. And they're not near expensive as like reloading, either pistol rounds and all that by the time you buy your Lee presses and all that stuff. But we shoot a lot here. I mean, a lot. But what I'm really thinking about is some of your caliber, like your 410, your 20 gauge, 16. Some of those are a little harder to find and they're more expensive. And then plus, once you jump up into your turkey loads, for instance, your buckshot, it gets quite a bit more expensive. You're buying, a box of 25 for, what you can buy a box of just bird rounds. You can buy 100, rounds of bird rounds for what you can buy a box of, nice buckshot, or turkey loads and stuff. So, and plus, I believe that one channel is Shotgun Scientist or whatever, a couple brothers, and they put like washers and different stuff. They like try a lot of different stuff in their loads, and that kind of looks a little fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, there's another channel called
Flavor
Mouse.
No, you don't talk about that. That guy's an a-hole. So then there's a good point, though, that when you're hunting, you can make lethal and you can then go practice with your actual rounds. The ultimate is when you can buy CCW ammo that you can practice with, because it is different. It hits harder. So that's a great point, Hillbilly. If you're hunting, that might be a reason to reload. And that's the other thing is I got my reloading press used at a gun show for like $120 for everything, like everything. Somebody was just getting out of it, or I don't know, getting out of it, I think, maybe upgrading. But either way, if somebody's upgrading because they like it so much or they're just getting out of it, it's another reason to go hang out at gun shows or gun shops that sell used stuff. Because, like I say, I got into it for like $100-something bucks, everything I needed. And then I don't think I had to buy powder maybe. And I mean, I had shot and everything for $100-something bucks. So you can get into it cheap and then make, like Hillbilly saying, like some pretty lethal stuff. I wouldn't play around with throwing stuff down a shotgun, though. It seems all fun in games. They don't show you all the shotgun barrels they blow up or hurt themselves. They only show you the good stuff because they're fake.
I mean, honestly, the old timers, they literally loaded, some shots with just rock shot. It's steadily available, and and then get somebody off your property. Just same. I assume rock salt that they use for their ice cream and other stuff.
Yeah, probably. Used to use it a lot to discourage varmints and stuff like that. If there was something you really didn't want to kill so much, is to just kind of make it go away. Legends were that kids would go around stealing corn and stealing watermelons out of people's gardens, would end up with a posterior full of rock salt back in the day. I don't know how true that was, but that's sure. The stories the old timers tell anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I can remember those days. I've seen shotguns loaded with salt before. And you shoot them at critters and stuff, birds and whatever. You'd use them for that kind of thing. But it's all about mass physics. You can't make salt go anywhere near as fast as you can make lead go, even if you put an explosion behind it. I imagine if you carved a projectile, like a slug out of salt, that's a different story. I don't think anybody ever did that, though.
So let me, where are we going? I don't want to do this one here. GearWebsites.com for 2A stickers, patches, books, logo design, web design, 3D printing, technology consulting, and so much more. GearWebsites.com. GearWebsites.com for all your 2A related stickers, patches, wall art, 3D design, web consulting.
I've kind of gotten rid of the wall art part until I can find a printer, but appreciate it. But that's awesome. Did you redo that? That looks pretty nice.
No, that's the same one. I'm pretty sure if you paid him enough, he'll wall art for you.
Oh, yeah, I have spray painted walls. My one friend, when he moved into his place, we went in there and spray painted. FYI, don't ever spray paint an entire living room wall without having a bunch of respirators and stuff, because no matter how many fans you got, it really mess up a place. But I've done a couple of ceilings and then walls when we were young. You ever done that? Never had like a house where it's like, this is my house. I can do
No.
what I want. Oh, okay.
No. And I wanted to do this one.
Disco is dead. Disco is not dead. Disco is life.
The promos don't fill the screen anymore. It's interesting.
Could that be a setting? Because they have
Did
that.
you turn on your under settings? Seems like under settings and layouts, there's an option for the solo layout to
Oh, that's
have
something
margins
new.
around it.
I'll have to.
Some
mess with
people
that
probably
later.
wanted their brand, their logo stuff around it, their branding. When they
Yeah,
were-
I do my foul territory that way, so when I'm full screen, you still see the background around it. But
I'll mess with that later. Oh, hillbilly. Plug something. Uh-oh. Did the kids get him?
I don't know.
Okay, guys, sorry, I'm back. I had to go check on kids.
Is there anything you want to plug, hillbilly?
Oh man, thank you. Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate that. Next Saturday on Guns, Beer, and Therapy, we're having our Christmas party giveaway. We're going to be giving away, some stuff on there. It'll be a lot of fun. And then the following Saturday is going to be another great show. We're having Brown Works on there, and he makes really nice custom grips for pistols and stuff, and even ARs. And he's going to be a guest on there the following Saturday, I believe, on the 3rd. So we got that lined up, and then starting Monday will be my hashtag 7 gun shorts at Christmas. So we'll run all the way up to Christmas Eve. So a gun short every day, and I welcome anybody that would like to join that and just use the hashtag 7 gun shorts at Christmas. You can see what I did last year, or just anything. It's just kind of bring some 2A shorts to that time leading up to Christmas for people to watch.
Gary, anything you want to plug?
I guess I could do 7 knives of Christmas or something like that.
There you go.
Let's see. I did some knife. Speaking of knives, I did a couple knife reviews this last week, so check those out on my channel. I have an Olight review coming up this next week. Hopefully, I'll get that out Sunday or Monday. And of course, Foul Territory on Friday. That's at 9 p.m. Central. Love to have everybody come by. And I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming and helping out here. Larry enough, creeping in here at the very end. G-Webs, anything you want to plug? Are you doing a knife show tomorrow?
No, I can't. I'm doing something else tomorrow. But just thanks for hosting, and thanks for the link.
Oh, no problem. So if you watch this in replay, leave a comment. They're always appreciated. I always read them. And thank you to those who were out there in the live chat, chatting it up, and those who might have been watching and didn't say anything. I do appreciate you too. Don't be afraid to say hi. Let me know that you're out there. And next week will be a mouse party. And other than that, I hope everybody has a good rest of the night. Go do something good.
You still here? It's over. Go home.